Mic check, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Hip Hop Snapshots, your new favorite podcast, if I can say so myself. Speaking of, I'm your host, Ross Martinez, so welcome back. And people love to say the Midwest doesn't have a true sound. Well, that's kind of true, but it's not really. What the Midwest doesn't have is one answer to that question. So today, we're not naming a vibe, we're taking a journey through the Midwest. Because the Midwest didn't produce one genre, it produced systems, lanes, and many different languages that quietly rewired hip-hop completely. This is the Midwest, or as some of us, like myself, who's born on the south side of Chicago, this is called the MidBest. Without further ado, grab a milk crate. Take a seat. It's time to talk hip-hop history. If we're starting anywhere, we gotta start in Chicago for many reasons, not just because of my own pride of where I come from. Chicago is not a single sound. Chicago is hip-hop in conversation with itself. Before drill, before blogs, before streaming, Chicago gave hip-hop hip house. Rap over house music, club records, movement records, born from the city's deep relationship with dance, DJs, and black electronic music. This was hip-hop touching the floor, not the charts. Then came the thinkers. Common wasn't just a rapper, he's a pillar of Chicago music, of soul samples, neighborhood ethics, community reflection, Chicago as poetry. Then Lupe Fiasco took that lineage and sharpened it. I remember I was in high school when Food and Liquor came out, and we were passing that CD around like hot plates, boy. Dense bars, political thought, futurism, proof that intelligence wasn't anti-hip-hop. But then the big thing happened. Kanye. And let's be clear, Kanye is Chicago. Mind you, complex character and says some intriguing things. Kanye is Chicago. When you think staples and icons in hip-hop and you're looking at the Midwest, first place you think of is Kanye West. As a producer, Kanye took Chicago's soul samples, sped them up, pitched them, got emotional with the music, and spread it everywhere. We're talking everyone. From Jay-Z, Nas, Scarface, The Game, Goody Mob, Dead Prez, T.I., Dipset, Freeway, Janet Jackson, my man went pop. That wasn't influence, that was what we call distribution. Kanye didn't just change Chicago, he embedded Chicago's DNA into mainstream hip-hop himself. And then the rupture in music happened. Chief Keef, drill music. Some say it's rebellion, but it wasn't. It wasn't trend chasing. It wasn't shock to be shock value. It was documentation without translation. Same city, same pressures, different languages, as you can see. Chicago didn't lose its identity. It split. That's Midwest's truth. We all come from the same big metropolis, but all have different coded ways of speaking our perspective. Now, as we go to Detroit, right? Detroit records, this is Motown land, where timing mattered more than being polished, where groove was as more essential than being perfect on the beat. This is why Jay Dilla matters the way he does. Dilla didn't just make beats, he changed how time behaves in hip-hop. Dilla drums. This, when you're thinking of producers in hip-hop, beat makers, right? Kanye's up there, but Dilla, for hip-hop heads, for book-back rappers and hip-hop nerds across the universe, Dilla is just as essential to hip-hop as Kanye is. Some people get mad about that, but dig through crates, bro. Learn some history. Dilla didn't just make beats. He changed how time behaves in hip-hop with Dilla drums. He created a completely new lane. It was off-grid. It was human. It was imperfect on purpose. That field didn't stop in the Midwest. It sharpened producers globally, especially in Japan, where artists like Nujabes built an entire movement on that sense of space and rhythm. Detroit sharpens pens. We're talking about Eminem, Royce the 5'9", Obi Trice. That is craftsmanship hip hop. No margin for error, respect earned bar by bar. Detroit doesn't celebrate flash, it respects precision. Now let's talk about fast rap in the Midwest. Fast rap isn't just showing off and, hey, look how quick I can rap. No. It came from rooms where you didn't get a second chance. Bone Thugs and Harmony turned speed into harmony. Melody raps around urgency, pain moving fast because standing still wasn't safe. Twista showed clarity at high speeds, not as a gimmick, but as master control over your own sound. This wasn't novelty rap, it was technical survival. The Midwest also produces artists who don't fit neatly anywhere because isolation gives you space to sit with yourself. Kid Cudi, right? And when I was in college, Kid Cudi was huge. It gave hip hop permission to be sad out loud. Before it was really cool. You had Scarface doing some things, but Kid Cudi on the mainstream level changed things. It was before it was marketable. Kid Cudi was there, drawing out this lane in more mainstream, as I like to call them, GBCs, general base consumers. As a hip hop head, you know who Scarface is. I expect you to. But Kid Cudi, kids in the suburbs were pumping that. Oh, I love hip hop. Shout out to Kid Cudi. But then you also have Brother Ali. He blended his faith, justice, and doubt, not as slogans, but as lived tensions in perspective. Freddie Gibbs balanced street identity, realism with elite craftsmanship, proving you didn't have to dumb it down for the room to keep it honest. These aren't Midwest styles, they're Midwest outcomes. Now let's talk about drill. Before drill went global, Chicago was already, for lack of better terminology, moving bodies with juke and footwork. And they were street culture. Hyper rhythmic, unquantized, built for battles, basements, and community spaces. That rhythm logic that people talk about, you can hear it, echoes of it everywhere across the globe. From electronic music to modern beat structures. And even nearby in Milwaukee, they have a subgenre called the low end. And that sound pushed bass culture even further underground. Another quiet Midwest contribution that rarely gets talked about when you're talking about the history of hip hop. See, the Midwest didn't give hip hop one sound. It gave it Kanye's emotional production language with soul samples, Dilla's human time with Dilla drums, Chicago's contradictions, Detroit's discipline, speed as skill, dance as culture, vulnerability without apology. That right there is what we call range. And the MidBest, in my opinion, did it better than the rest. So yeah, the Midwest isn't confused. It's just not interested in being boxed in. Mic check, mic check. That's another episode of Hip Hop Snapshots. I'm your host, Ross Martinez. And look, there's probably some things in here I missed. Probably some things I miss in most episodes. I'm not a real historian. I'm a nerd that is enamored with the culture of hip hop. So I do my Googles, bro. I watch my docs. And every episode I tell you, dig through crates. That's not just a fun catchphrase. That's how I learned about a lot of this. I went to my record stores. I dig through crates. I know that soul sample. Wait, who's featured on this? Wait, who produced this? I nerded out. So go dig through crates. I gave you a bunch of names. That is a pure foundation to start discovering what the MidBest did and added to the overall culture of hip hop. And as always, every episode teaches you a little bit more about the culture. And I end every podcast with this. Dig through crates, and remember, always be hip hop. I'm out. Peace.